So a lot of people want to know exactly what the coronavirus is and what it does. So I'm going to give a little explanation as far as what I think it does and what, what viruses do. So the reason why it's called a coronavirus is because it has a crown-shaped outer layer, and viruses aren't actually living things. They're actually just pieces of DNA or RNA in this case, that can take itself into a cell and insert its RNA or DNA into a cell in the body and make that cell make more of itself. So what happens is, say you have a lung here in the lung cell. So the lung cell is kind of like this. It comes up to the lung cell. Like that. Like this. It goes up to the lung cell and it plugs itself into the cell. When it plugs itself into the cell, the RNA gets into the cell and it goes inside of the nucleus of the cell and it inserts itself into the DNA of that particular cell. And when it does that, it hooks in there. Now the cell is designed to replicate itself and replicate proteins or whatever it needs to make to keep the cell alive and keep the cell functioning. So in this case, when it does that, the cell has now been reprogrammed to start making more viruses. Then the viruses leak out into the body. And repeats the process thousands and trillions and thousands of millions of times. And this is what makes a virus so profound, is that it can go into the cell of any part of the lungs and mucosa and reproduce itself. And then once it reproduces itself, it now can go infect more cells just like this. Also, because it reproduces itself so much, now when you cough, these minute, small little molecules can live inside of a droplet of spit or mucus. So when you cough, now you have all these molecules that get sprayed out into the environment. The next person comes up, breathes it in, and then this process starts again in that person. That's how viruses infect people. So once it does that, the body then starts recognizing the virus as something foreign. So the body goes, I don't like that. I'm going to do something about it. So when it does that, now you have these big cells that come up, and it tries to engulf the virus and takes it into there. And tries to, once it gets inside of the cell, the cell tries to destroy it. It destroys it, and then it takes little pieces of it and sends signal out to all of the other cells like this, and say and then tells it, hey, whenever you see this piece of this cell, go after it and get it. And that signal goes to the brain and also tells the brain to heat up. The reason why you heat up is because heating up slows down metabolism. So if you slow down the metabolism, the viruses, they can't be made as quickly. So it slows down the production of the actual viruses in the body, which gives the body a chance to fight it off. So a lot of what happens in the body, initially, the cough, the sneeze, the fever, the throat soreness, is a product of your body going, hey, we have something in our system that we need to get out, cough it out, sneeze it out, heat the body up. And that's some of the mechanisms that the body uses to try to control an infection in the system. The problem with corona is not only, which corona is Latin for crown, so it's basically means crown. So it's because it has a crown-like spike structure around it, or corona, like a solar corona, like the solar corona around the sun. This little virus, it has a lot of what's called virulence, meaning you don't need that much exposure to get sick. So, and it also is a pretty resilient virus, because on the surface, it can sit there, viruses can sit on the surface for sometimes 9 days. So somebody coughs, the virus is on the surface, it sits there for 9 days. You walk by and touch it with your thumb. Now it's on your hand. If you don't wash your hand and touch your face, then this gets back into the lung. And then the process starts for you. So that's the reason why it's spreading so rapidly, and you may not know who you were actually exposed to when you get sick, because of the fact that the actual virus can sit on the countertop for up to 9 days. So why do we wear masks? N95 masks are designed in such a way to where it puts a seal around your face. So when you look at it from the front, and it seals the face. And it has these special filters inside of it that lets air through, but not particles, the corona. It's trapped in it. So that air with that maybe corona droplet gets stopped at the filter, and that keeps it from getting into your nose. The surgical mask, the one that you see most people wearing, doesn't seal around the face. So it won't protect you from the corona coming through the side or through the top in any open area where there's potential space where moisture and air can get through that's unfiltered. So the surgical masks don't work as well to stop the influx. But what's good about a surgical mask is if you're sick, anything that comes out will get trapped on the mask. So the corona gets trapped on the inside of the mask. So people who actually have corona should be wearing masks, or if they think they have it, they can wear masks because that protects it from getting out. It doesn't stop it once it gets out, and it can come around and things like that if you're not sick. But if you have corona already, whenever you cough or sneeze or anything like that, it shoots out the droplets, and the surgical mask can catch it. And if it catches it, then that potentially stops somebody from getting sick. So that's kind of the difference between the surgical mask and the N95, which actually blocks particles from getting in. It seals around the face so you don't have any outside air coming in. Only air comes through the filter, and it's filtered air, so the molecules from the COVID-19 can't get inside of the mask, versus a surgical mask, which it's not sealed against your face. It still can get past the open areas of the mask, but for somebody who's sick, it can potentially keep the virus at least entrapped onto that particular mask, so it's harder for someone else to get sick. So one person with corona can get $59,000 people sick. So you sick, and here you got 2 people sick. Those 2 people got 2 people sick. Those 2 people got 2 people sick. Or 10 people sick, doesn't matter. And it just keeps going. And that's the problem. That one person who has it can potentially infect the whole community. So why the social distancing. Social distancing shows one person here, one person here. One set of people say 3 feet, one say 6 feet. I'd err on the side of caution. Stick with the 6 feet because 3 feet might be too close. Also, if you know anything about a sneeze, especially a sneeze from a person can travel 27 feet. The droplets can. This is all droplets that come out, spray out when you sneeze with the viruses in them. Put your mask on. Mask. So 6 feet is what they're saying, but you also need to realize that there's a possibility that 27 feet away you can get a droplet from a corona person, or that droplet can land on something 20 feet away from it and sit there for 9 days. So at this point, I think what people should realize is that every surface, every person that they come around, even if they're a loved one, they could potentially be sick. So what's happening in hospitals, and why the death toll I think is so high is because if you look at hospitals in general, most hospitals already run at close to 96% capacity, right? So you got 96% of the beds at any hospital at any given time are already full. So through America, there's about, I don't know, maybe like 1 million beds available for sick people throughout the whole United States, which means that 960,000 of them already have people that have life-threatening illnesses and diseases in them already, because most people who end up in the hospital are only in the hospital because whatever they have needs to be watched by a doctor because that's a potential of death. So 960,000 people already are in the hospital because they're at risk of dying. Unless there's a surgery, unless there's some other reason like an overnight stay, those kind of things. Which still, if you go to do a surgery and they put you in the hospital overnight, they're expecting you to potentially have complications. So they're watching you for your risk of dying. So when anybody goes into the hospital outside of like a woman having a baby, the reason is for the potential risk of whatever you got diagnosed with, of potentially causing death for you. So since there's about a 96% capacity already, if you stick 1 million people on top of that, if you're only equipped for 1 million people and you stick another million on top, you're gonna run out of resources, right? Because the hospitals aren't set up to deal with another 1 million people that have life-threatening illnesses. So they're gonna run out of stuff quickly. They're going to run out of beds quickly. They're going to run out of supplies quickly. They're going to run out of ventilators quickly because they're not equipped to handle an extra million people at one time getting sick, because the capacity is 960,000 usually throughout the whole year. So that's part of the reason why the healthcare system is having a lot of trouble, because you have an extra influx of people coming on top of what's already there, and it's creating some of the problems. So say a doctor who usually sees 50 patients a day throughout the whole day, or ER doc who sees 50 patients a day, or now seeing 100 patients, up to 100 patients. So for the most part, doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, MAs, I mean down to the cooking staff in the hospital, they are already operating at double to triple the workload. Triple the workload. So if you have triple the workload for the same amount of people, that means you need triple the doctors, triple the staff, triple everything, and this is skilled staff. So there's no way to get people skilled enough to do these jobs in this short amount of time. So that's a lot of the reason why we're having trouble, because once you don't have enough people to see these patients safely, then you have a doctor seeing 100 patients, and once that kind of doubles, he gets tired, he's not thinking properly, they're running out of medicines, they're running out of resources, he has to work all through the night, he's not getting any rest, he's working triples, doubles, they're in the hospital 36, 48 hours, those kind of things. You start to see medical mistakes, and also you start to see physician, nurse fatigue, you see doctor fatigue, you see healthcare fatigue, because they just can't handle this volume. And that's the second part of this problem, is that even though in the United States we have the capabilities for getting more people well, I think it's basically a load effect that's triggering everything to kind of crumble, because there's no way a doctor can consistently see 100 patients a day and not get burnt out. There's no way a nurse who was taking care of, say, 50 patients now has to take care of 150 patients, is not going to get burnt out. There's no way a respiratory therapist who was intubating and doing respirations on, say, 200 patients now has to do it on 600 patients. So it's a capacity issue. Our system is already at max capacity because of the level of problems that we have regularly within the society. So I think that's part of the reason why the healthcare system is having trouble managing the outbreak, because of the capacity issue. And then on top of that, you have 1 million people who's sick, and then you have a million people who have other problems that now have to be exposed to the 1 million people that's sick, and they're already immunocompromised and have other issues that's kind of has them already hit. So they'll end up having complications from whatever they could have cleared, because now they get infected from a corona exposure just from being in the hospital. So I think the people who have an idea that they have a good immune system, I think people who think that it can't happen to me, people who don't take the proper precautions, and you may not get sick, but if you're not taking the proper precautions, you could actually get sick and not show symptoms, and then you still spread it out to other people who are immune compromised. So I think you stay at home, you practice the social distancing, you do the things you need to do to keep your family safe, keep yourself safe. Don't take unnecessary risks by going out and trying to get things that you may not need, or to continue to work when you could potentially not work, or any of the other things that will potentially cause you to spread this virus or even catch it. You know, everybody essentially needs to work, and everyone has to take care of their families, but essential work that's necessary. Just protect yourself. And if you could not work, or if you're vulnerable for complications from a sickness, you probably should talk to your doctor or talk to your job about letting you take some time away from the job until we get over the outbreak. For California, they're predicting that the outbreak is gonna peak April 24th. Reason I think it is gonna peak here is because about maybe 10 days before that is Easter. So Easter is the big problem. People want to still congregate and still go out and socialize and celebrate the holiday, and continue to spread the corona around, and it's gonna perpetuate a peak for us. And then it may go down from there, or it may drop and then peak again. It just depends on how quickly we can manage and continue to do the social distancing, and kind of go from there. Any questions?